Welcome to the channel, everybody. In today's video, I've got something that's exciting to me, and I'm hoping you're going to get something from it as well. We are talking the hardest golf clubs to hit on the market. We are talking bladed MB irons. They are difficult to hit because, to be honest with you, there's not a lot to them. So I thought today we would look at my top 5 irons of 2024 in the bladed range. Now, when it comes to a set of blades, these clubs are going to be designed for those players that find the center of the bat, well, a little bit more often than not, because there's not a lot to a blade. A bladed iron is a lump of metal that doesn't have any support to it at all. So what I mean by that is if you don't quite hit it out the middle of the club, you're going to lose an awful lot of ball speed, and therefore your golf ball will not get to your intended target, or certainly not in the air anyway. And please also note that this is my top 5. There are many irons out there on the market, but I've picked what I feel is my top 5 that I think you should go out and possibly test this year. And remember that my top 5 might be slightly different to your top 5, but let's get going. In number 5, for all you Mizuno fans out there, you're going to be excited to know that the Mizuno Pro 241 made the lineup in the top 5. They say that nothing feels like a Mizuno, but to be fair, in this testing today, they've all actually felt pretty similar. But there's a few little things that I want to share with you that brings these clubs into the lineup that I've chosen for today. The Mizuno Pro comes in at 34 degrees of loft, which is pretty much standard to what I'm testing here today. Spin-wise, with this particular 7-iron, I'm getting 6.8 to 6.9 thousand revs. Now, that's about, again, a little bit higher than what I would like to see. I want to try and get something in and around the sort of 6,500 revs mark, which will give me that precision, that control, but also a little bit more distance. The more spin you have, the more control you generally get. However, you will lose a little bit of distance, and 152 yards on average that I'm getting from this particular 7-iron. And then from a price point, £185 per club. And when you see the other clubs that I've got here to test today, you'll know that this is actually a little on the high side, which is why I've put the Mizuno Pro at number 5. In number 4, we've got the Wilson Staff, the glossy Wilson Staff. From a visual point of view, when you look at this on the shelf, it's going to want to grab you and pull you in to take a closer look at it. And I think it's an absolutely stunning looking iron, which is why I've put it in at number 4. However, visually down by the ball, out of all the clubs that we've tested here today, this one gives me the kind of bigger profile, which actually for lots of golfers out there is going to make them feel a little bit more confident that you've got a little bit more real estate down by the golf ball. But when it comes to a set of blades, I actually think slightly smaller is actually slightly better. It almost like dials your focus in just a little bit more, enabling you to want to strike it a little bit more out the center, which is extremely important. Loft-wise, 34 degrees of loft, exactly the same as what we're getting out of that Mizuno. And then spin-wise, just a fraction lower at 6,700 revs. Just a little bit lower again than what I'm getting out of that Mizuno, and then going a fraction further at 153 yards. But from a price point of view, we're saving about £40 per club out of this Wilson compared to what I'm getting out of that Mizuno, £145 per iron. And I gotta say, with the components that they put into this club and the look of it and the feel of it, I don't think you can go too far wrong, which is why I've put this particular one at number 4. Now, number 3 does pain me a little bit to actually put it at number 3. However, you've got to be impressed that it's got inside that top 3, which puts it in the medals, should we say. And when I set up to this particular iron, it's the smallest of the lot. From a profile point of view, when you look down at it, certainly compared to what I was seeing out of the Mizuno and what I was seeing out of that Wilson, This one is absolutely tiny, but actually that's not necessarily a bad thing, like I've already said. It makes me think heavily about strike, and strike, as I've already said, is extremely important when it comes to a set of blades. The stunning Blueprint T iron by Ping. Like I said, this thing is an absolute thing of beauty. When you put it up on the shelf, it's kind of like less is more on the back there. Not got the glossy look. We've got that hydro pearl kind of finish, which takes that water away from the club face, enabling us to stop getting those flyers from those wet conditions. Now, this particular one, interestingly, coming in at 33 degrees of loft. Now remember, these are pretty soft materials that they're using, so you can maneuver them. And these do offer a retro and a more power type of option, so you can get that loft up and you can take that loft down depending on what you want from your spin numbers. But I'm very, very impressed with this particular iron. I think it's an absolutely stunning looking iron, but if you don't get it in the middle, you're gonna be up against it, coming up short. One negative that I've got with this particular iron, it's £190 per club, which is the highest that we're seeing of any of the clubs that I'm testing here today, which kind of made me feel that I was struggling to put this inside my top 3. I was kind of umming and ahhing, is price a massive factor? And it is a massive factor for lots of us out there. However, I think the feel, the performance, and the looks on it kind of overshadow the price just a little bit. And like I said, 33 degrees of loft, therefore I'm expecting to see those numbers just drop off a fraction, and I am seeing those numbers just drop off a fraction. I'm getting the spin numbers dropping down to 6,500 to 6,600 revs, which is a slight drop off, but it's still not bad, is it? And the benefit of that is I'm getting out there just a little bit further at 160 yards with this particular iron, which is the most powerful of all the options that I've got here today. But then you would expect that spins down, loft is down, therefore it's going a little bit further. However, I still feel at 6,500 revs to 6.6, we're still getting the control that we need. But like I said, it's pretty damn small. Number 2, I think is going to shock a lot of you. Certainly those of you that watch the channel and watch us play our golf around the golf course, because I've put in at number 2 the Titleist 620 MB iron, which is the club that I've been using for certainly nearly 4 years now in the golf bag. And you could argue that the MB from Titleist has been in their range now from, I want to say 2019 is when I got hold of these clubs. So I've nearly had it, well, definitely had it in the bag for probably 4 years, if not coming up to 5 years, and they don't want to change it. Now, there's something quite, I would say, romantic about that, isn't there? The fact that they feel like they found an iron that works really, really well in this category, and therefore the tour players love it, people like me love it, so why would you look at changing it? From a visual point of view, I don't think it gets much better than this particular iron. Very simple on the back there, even though I've got a little bit of writing that I've put in. And from a visual point of view, looking down, it's very small in its profile, not dissimilar to what I'm seeing out of that Ping Blueprint, maybe just a fraction bigger. But the top line, the offset, everything ticks the box for what a bladed player would be looking for from this particular iron. £160 per club. And if we look at the actual numbers that it's giving me, I'm spinning it the highest out of all of them. I'm actually getting just over 7,000 revs out of this 7-iron, which is a little bit on the high side, but it might be the reason why I enjoy hitting it so much, because I feel like I get so much control with this. When I move into irons that have less loft, let's say giving me less spin and going a bit further, I tend to move around a little bit on the golf course. So I tend to hit my target more often than not with these particular irons, which is why I enjoy hitting them. However, at that spin, I'm still actually getting 154 yards out of this 7-iron on an average, which is there or thereabouts with everything else that we've tested here today. So the 620 MB by Titleist is coming in at number 2. But who has actually picked this club and why? Well, it's a club that is not going to be found, let's say, in pro shops. It's a club that's going to come to you direct from the manufacturer. The Takomo 301 MB. Now, this particular iron is a fraction bigger than what I'm seeing out of the Titleist and what I'm seeing out of the Ping, but it's going to give lots of players lots of confidence. Still got that thin top line, still got very little offset, which is what you would expect. I think the feel out of this particular iron is fractionally different to the others, but still really, really nice and definitely worth a try. Now this one coming out at 34 degrees of loft, which again falls nicely into the bracket of everything else that we've tested here today. It's giving me 6.8 to 6.9 in the spin. Again, very similar to what I'm getting out of everything else here today. But wait for it, price, 90 to 95 pounds per iron. And distance-wise, around 155 yards on an average carry. I'm really impressed with this Takomo iron, probably more to the fact that it looks good, it feels good, the numbers are great from it, but the fact is, it's just the price on it. It just blows everything else out of the water. And I think with that in mind is why I've put it in at number 1. But remember, these are the hardest of any golf clubs to hit out there on the market. And certainly when you start getting up into your 5 irons, your 4 irons, and even your 3 irons, a bladed iron is going to be tough to hit. You're going to start to see this gapping sort of squidging a little bit unless you're very precise with your strike and you've got some good amount of power to get it out there. The one thing that you could argue about with all these clubs here today is that the spin numbers that I'm getting are particularly high. And lots of tour players obviously have blades in their bags, and therefore they need to somehow control that spin without moving loft around too much. Which is why what you'll find with lots of these players is they'll start dialing those numbers in with golf balls. Golf balls can be controlling the spin really quite well. For this particular testing, I'm using a Titleist Pro V1X, which is their kind of spinniest model, should we say. However, if I went down to, let's say, a Pro V1, I could probably drop off that spin by about 300 revs per iron that I'm hitting here. So I can dial those numbers in really quite nicely. And remember, this test today is down on my personal preference. I do lots of testing when it comes to Foremost Golf, the biggest buying group in the UK. So therefore I get access to test a lot of clubs. And I think the ones that I've picked here today aren't going to tick the box for all of you out there, but I do think you should consider testing these if you're in the market and want to put a set of blades in your bag. Now, for those of you that are going to ask what was number 6, because I've had that in pretty much every video, it's not the TaylorMade Tiger Woods Prototype one, no. It's the Callaway Apex MB. And it didn't quite make the top 5 purely because I feel like this iron is a little bit squat from top to bottom, which again makes it look a little bit kind of longer in the blade length, but then a little bit squat and didn't quite suit my eye. However, from a performance point of view, some really good numbers. And what I would say is the CB option is a much better looking club than the MB. So I really hope you've enjoyed that video today. It's just a bit of an insight into the clubs that I enjoy hitting myself, and hopefully it's given you an insight into what spin numbers can do and controlling the golf ball and how important that actually is. So if you like what you're seeing from this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you again on the next video. Hole in one? Bit long.